All right, that's the background to our discussion generally. We have from our Abuja studio Director Regulatory and Stakeholders Relations, Abimbola Odubiyi. Abimbola, it's good to have you on TVC Breakfast.
Yeah, good morning. Nice to have you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, let's start it this way. The NIPP, when it was initiated, Nigerians had very high hopes as to by now, in fact, from the projections, by now Nigeria should have been supplying electricity to some neighboring countries in real terms. What really happened? Can you give us a background?
Actually, most of the NIPP power stations have been completed. Unfortunately, we haven't got enough gas to fire them. And once we got enough gas, we should be able to generate as much as we can from the NIPP stations. Currently, right now, what we're having now is the problem in the Niger Delta that is depriving the gas stations, the power station enough gas to generate. And we are all in a problem now. We haven't got enough generation to meet the demand.
Okay, I remember in a particular article I read
about 5,000.
Mr. Odubiyi, I remember former Vice President Atiku Abubakar making a statement that he actually advised former President Olusegun Obasanjo not to depend on gas for this particular project. And now that you realize that the issue of Niger Delta crisis is a perennial one, have you thought of alternatives?
Yeah. Actually, there's alternative, and government is working to develop other energy mix, coal, solar, and hydro. But there's nothing really bad in using our gas resources to generate electricity, because we got gas in abundance. And also, remember, many years ago, those gas were being wasted. So it's better to convert the gas to generate electricity. It's unfortunate that what we're having now is the problem in the Niger Delta. If we haven't got the Niger Delta problem, we've got enough gas to meet all our power stations' demand.
All right, we seem to blame.
It's always good as any economy.
Okay, well, all right, Abimbola.
To have diversification.
All right, let me take you on this. There seems to be a blame on the Niger Delta crisis right now. We remember that before the past administration, they had several years of not really having issues with Niger Delta, and we didn't still have that kind of progress that we intended or wanted to see with the NIPP.
Yeah, you must remember that the NIPP program started actually in 2008. And unfortunately, it was stopped by late President Yar'Adua administration. And then when President Jonathan came, he revived the program. And most of the power stations are completed. And they are ready to go. Just that we haven't got enough gas to fire them.
Yeah, before this Niger Delta Avenger, that's probably happened how many months? Just about 2 months ago. Before then, how would you rate? Because one of the objectives of the power project was to bring in foreign direct investment. Before this crisis, how would you rate your performance, really, in all honesty?
Yeah, well, the power sector in Nigeria is going through a very tremendous change right now with the privatization. A lot of work has been done to revive the existing power stations and the distribution stations. A lot of money has gone in, and you must also be aware that most of the investors that bought the old PHCN stations and the new NIPP stations have spent money to revive them. Before, we have, if you remember, only 4 units were working in Edwin Power Station. But now all the 6 units are ready and can work. Kangi and Jeba have been overhaul, and the plants they are also ready to work. With the distribution companies, a lot of investments have gone in, more transformers have been bought, there have been line extensions. So the privatization has actually done a lot to move the power sector in Nigeria forward. It's just the temporary hiccup that we are having now, which is the lack of gas to fire the power station. But once we can resolve the current Niger Delta crisis, you could see that by now we should be able to generate at least close to 7,000 megawatts in the country. If you remember, in February we did above 5,000 megawatts, and I planned that during the rainy season with the combination of the hydro, we should be getting close to 7,000 now. With the investment going on in the gas infrastructure, which is supposed to provide more gas to the power stations, if we be able, if everything goes well, by this time next year, we should be close to 10,000 megawatts. So the plan was actually a good plan. The implementation was going, okay, it's just we have a usual social problem, which nobody predicted when all this were being implemented, was being planned. But hopefully, the crisis in the Niger Delta will be resolved, and we'll get back on track, and the power sector in Nigeria will continue to move forward.
Okay, perhaps that's an omission on your part not to think that there could be crisis in the Niger Delta. You're a Nigerian, and you know that this crisis is a perennial crisis. So how would you think things like this won't crop up? We'll probably allow you to respond to that after some of this information we want to churn out now.
All right, now let's have a background to understanding this issue. Nigeria has about 5,000 megawatts electricity generation capacity to cater for more than 170 million population. But before the enactment of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act in 2005, the federal government was solely responsible for policy formulation, regulation, operation and investment in the Nigerian power sector.
Prior to 2005, power sector operations was handled by the National Electric Power Authority, that's NEPA, a wholly state-owned enterprise responsible for power generation, transmission and distribution. The federal government amended electricity laws in 1998 to remove NEPA's monopoly and encourage private sector participation, since NEPA could not meet the required service for the country's socio-economic demands.
Now, in March 2005, the passage of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act transformed NEPA it transformed it into power holding company successor companies comprising of 6 generation companies you call GenCos, 1 transmission company, and 11 distribution companies you call DISCOs were incorporated. And between 2006 and 2007, the first wave of privatization commenced with about 400 expressions of interest, but the process was not completed due to policy change at that time.
In 2010, former President Goodluck Jonathan announced that the government-owned PHCN would be sold to the private sector to increase efficiency and profitability. The federal government, through the Bureau of Public Enterprises, that's BPE, opened financial bids to potential investors for the privatization of the power sector in 2012.
All right, we still have Abimbola Odubiyi from the Abuja Discourse with us in Abuja studio. Now, let's get into the issue of privatization. There have been comments here and there that many of the companies that took over, that unbundled NEPA into power holding company and into all of those fragments, didn't really have either the finances or the capital or the capacity to go on with all the liabilities, assets, and all of that of the companies they bought.
Actually, that is not true.
Okay.
Okay, so what is
the issue of funding of the power sector is because we haven't got the appropriate tariff that will make some of these companies bankable. And once we have enough tariff, the appropriate tariff, it will be easy for the new investors to raise the fund to invest and improve on their performance in the power sector.
Okay, permit me, perhaps forgive my naivety in this particular matter. I want to assume that before the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed, previous consultations were made for you to understand the economic sector, the business environment in Nigeria. Why wasn't that put into consideration, the issue of perhaps these challenges you are having now and the issue of tariff?
Actually, the promise made to the investors at the time of privatization is that right from onset, they will get cost-reflective tariff. And that, with the cost-reflective tariff, it will enable them to fund their operation and improve on their performance. But 2 years on, the cost-reflective tariff are just coming. But despite that, what has happened is a lot of the investors have went all their way to invest and to get the funds that they have spent to invest on this industry, in the companies they bought. Unfortunately, the necessary funds that they needed to pay back the loans are not there. So until we get a cost-reflective tariff or appropriate tariff, it's going to slow down, actually, the transformation that is going on in the power sector.
All right, Abimbola, how well off would you say Nigeria is now after the privatization process in the power sector?
What I would like to say is that there is hope and the future is bright for the power sector. Once we can get over the current crisis in the Niger Delta, we can get enough gas to fire the power stations, and we can get on with a cost-reflective tariff. You will see more investment, you will see more transformation. Currently, you could see that in the distribution sector, there have been more meters installed, more transformers installed, far more in the 5 years prior to privatization. And on the GENCO side, most of the moribund units that are not operating have been overhauled and they're all ready to go.
Okay, so, quite a lot of promises
the
there.
Is actually bright for the power sector.
Okay, quite a lot of promises there, Mr.
This is not a promise, actually. This is what is on ground.
All right, Mr. Odubiyi. So react to allegations that perhaps some of this, the power plants are even privatized so people's cronies and of course their relations and people are not, those who are manning the sector right now are not really qualified to do that.
No, that is not true. Part of the requirement for the winning the bid is must have a competent technical partner. And all the winners of the companies in the privatization, they all are competent technical partners. And these are verifiable by anyone with a Bureau of Public Enterprise. And all their technical partners are actually working along with the Nigerian investors to turn this sector around.
So how do you describe a partner that is who is proficient in his expertise, and we have this issue of crisis and the alternative sources are not popping up like that? Okay, maybe you should have thought about that we could have the Niger Delta crisis. So what other alternative can Nigeria plug in to get power? How really efficient are these technical partners?
All the technical partners that are involved with the Nigerian investors are very competent, and you could go and do your own independent investigation. For example, the technical partners there, which is Capco from South Korea, they've actually turned the company around. Every Unit 6 that was out for over 6 years have been refurbished and is ready and is working. The same thing with Kangin and Hydro that has not done any maintenance for more than 20 years. The old units they have been maintained and revamped and ready to go. On the distribution side, the technical partners of the distribution companies have also contributed and new operating methods, and we see a lot of information system and more ways of working, better ways of working have been introduced, which all our customers are actually beginning to see the impact.
Okay.
All right. Now, Mr. Abimbola, the issue, the power sector is not the first sector in Nigeria to be diversified or to be, what is it called, privatized, as the case may be, for private investors to come in. Now, at this point, Nigerians complain of very high tariffs, as the case may be. Now, what is the justification for the high tariff Nigerians are paying now against the backdrop of when private companies come in, when there is competition, and Nigerians are supposed to benefit from competitive comparison generally?
Unfortunately, many people are seeing the current tariff, which is the appropriate tariff, has been a bit high. But for many years, we in Nigeria, we have paid less for the cost of producing electricity. It is right now that we are now beginning to pay the appropriate price, and we are not even there yet. And until we start doing the right thing and pay the appropriate price for electricity, the industry will really not move forward. One of the reasons why government will not turn the industry around is because the government allowed the industry to operate without the correct price. And government do not have enough money to subsidize or to cover the shortfall in the industry. But now that government is no more involved, and we have to do the right thing, we have to make the industry move forward, we have to pay the appropriate price for the electricity.
All right, let's turn out.
Let's still give you a background to some of these issues in here. The National Integrated Power Project was conceived in 2004 as a major fast-track initiative to add significant new generation capacity to Nigeria's electricity supply industry.
There are 23 power plants in Nigeria with 10 gas-fired power stations under the NIPP. The gas plants under the NIPP have a combined installed capacity of 4,528.5 megawatts. The power plants and their production capacity as at May 2016, according to the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, are as follows.
Now we have the Alaoji Power Plant, which has about 450 megawatts. Ihovo Power Plant, 450 megawatts. Calabar Power Plant, 563 megawatts. We also have Egbema Power Plant, 338 megawatts. The Bahrain Power Plant, 225 megawatts. The Gerugu 2 Power Plant, 434 megawatts.
And don't forget, Sapele 2 Power Plant has 450 megawatt. Olorunshogo 2 Power Plant has 750 megawatt. Omoku 2 Power Plant, 225 megawatt. Omotosho 2 Power Plant has 450 megawatt.
Now, 8 of the 10 power plants are fully completed with installed capacity of 3,696 megawatts, and the last 2, Egbema and Omoku, with a capacity to generate 563 megawatts, are on course for completion and commissioning by the 4th quarter of this year. Well, that gives you a background generally of some of these power plants we're talking about in here. Now, let's come back to you, Mr. Odubiyi. One question I'd like to ask, as it is right now, there are still many parts of Nigeria that are not covered by this electricity project. But in fact, some villages and rural communities have not seen electricity before. How do you explain that in the course of talking about lighting up Nigeria?
Actually, one of the requirements in the privatization is that within 5 years, the distribution companies must extend their distribution network to cover most of the operating regions. And work is going on by most distribution companies to extend their network, and more new areas are also being connected. In addition to that, the Rural Electrification Agency of the federal government is also complementing the effort of the distribution company, trying to connect rural areas, remote rural areas, to electricity, while some communities are try to do their own mini grid network. So if all this work are going on, and it just takes a matter of time, in 5 years' time or a little bit more, most parts of Nigeria will be connected to electricity.
Okay, we'll hold you to that promise. I hope we'll be here, Hill and Hearty, in another 5 years to ask you. But I probably will appreciate some specifics, really, what in particular areas or which particular state are we looking at. If you can just give us like a pilot state, then we know, okay, this and this is going on in a particular state. Can you do that for us?
Well, I can only tell you about my own area, to be specific. In the Abuja electricity distribution area, we have already been connecting new areas to our network in many parts of our operating states, in Niger State, Kogi State, and Nasarawa State.
Okay. Let's look at the issue of prepaid meters. How available are they? How genuine are these meters?
Yeah, prepaid meters are being deployed as fast as we can. You must also appreciate the fact that the local manufacturers are not making them as fast as we need. So we have to import to complement the local made prepaid meters. And if not for the issue of the recent foreign exchange crisis, a lot of distribution companies will have imported and also bought more prepaid meters and install it for their customers. And on what we have with the BP, most distribution companies are supposed to install at least 100,000 prepaid meters a year. But you must be aware that we have a background shortfall of about 3 million prepaid meters required for the country. And it's not easy to procure 3 million prepaid meters within 2 years, because most of these meters are not made in Nigeria. Our local manufacturers just cannot make them fast enough. So we have to resort to import of the prepaid meters. But we are trying our best to get as much prepaid meters as we can.
All right, Mr. Odubiyi, still on the issue of prepaid meters. We see in INEC, for instance, when there was election, we know the time was fixed, the projection was made, and all the required card readers were imported from outside Nigeria. What projections are there for prepaid meters to be available, or what projections are there to phase out the manual meters and install all prepaid meters for Nigeria?
And there are deadlines as well.
Actually, I would love to have more investors get involved in making prepaid meters in Nigeria, because it will enable us to procure them faster and install them quicker for our customers. Unfortunately, the local manufacturers, their production capacity cannot cope with the demand, and that's why we have to import some. But if we can get more local investors to be doing these prepaid meters in Nigeria, it will help us a lot to satisfy the demand for prepaid meters in Nigeria.
So you're saying that there are not enough local investors, or you have not even perhaps reached out to some investors to help with this? Is that the situation?
Actually, we are buying all of our prepaid meters from Nigerian local manufacturers. But what I'm saying is that the local manufacturers just cannot make enough to meet the demand. We got about 3 million demand for prepaid meters in Nigeria. And by the last estimate, the local manufacturers can only make about close to 400,000 a year. So you could see the gap.
Okay, do you have deadlines?
We need more investors to be involved in making prepaid meters. Of course, you have a deadline with a performance agreement with the BP.
Yeah, what we're saying is, when will there be a law? Is it possible? When will there be a law that all Nigerians must now start using prepaid meters so they have value for their money and there's a measurable instrument for what they use and what they're paying for?
Actually, I could say that within the agreement with the BP, most Nigerians will have their prepayment meters. But it's not something you can do within 2 years.
Okay. All right. Abimbola Odubiyi from the Abuja Discos. Thank you for talking to us. NIPP. Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.